Who would have thought it? Who would have thought it? We're back talking about Jesse Lingard every single day. Roll the titles. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the West Ham Network. I am Anton. This is a live for you, yes. I thought I'd come on and just have a brief discussion with you regarding Jesse Lingard, because we know he's been training with West Ham over the last few months, picking up as much fitness as he possibly can. And we've been led to believe that he's fighting for a short-term deal at the club. Now, over the past couple of days, it's been announced that West Ham have submitted a list of players for the squad for the Europa League campaign, and Jesse Lingard obviously hasn't signed for the club. Therefore, the deadline's gone and he is not available to make an appearance for West Ham in the Europa League. And many people have even messaged me over the past couple of days saying that, you know, if that means that he is not available for Europe, then bang goes West Ham's chance of signing or looking at signing Jesse Lingard to add that strength and depth, where I kind of necessarily don't think that is true. I don't think he's just potentially going to come into West Ham because of a Europa League campaign. I think that West Ham need strength and depth, and we've got a lot of players that need to come in to order that strength in the squad. And I think Jesse Lingard could fit that mold and that criteria. Now, I've done a video ages ago about Jesse Lingard, and I gave him my real opinion on him. And I said, listen, when he knocked us back last year and went to Nottingham Forest, you know, I kind of gave up hope of seeing him in a West Ham shirt and lost a lot of faith in the guy when he did knock us back. And then, you know, you've seen that interview. I've already done a video on this, but I'll just quickly reiterate. You've done an interview with Stephen Bartlett, which kind of felt a bit ominous about him turning around and saying that he felt more love from Nottingham Forest than West Ham. And I think what you've probably clocked onto, the fact is the guy's got some issues off the field, and that's really what's impacted the geezer in his career as of late. However, he was reportedly back at Rush Green training with the West Ham squad. You know, I don't think there's ever been any kind of heartfelt messages coming from the guy in regards to West Ham. So I don't think he's a problem causer. I think he's a good guy to have in and around the squad, and it seems to be that that's quite possibly the case. Now, it looks like his fitness levels dropped dramatically, so West Ham brought him in to give him the opportunity to progress. Now, it's been claimed today that several clubs are chasing Jesse Lingard, in particular from Saudi Arabia. Now, I don't know where I'm at with all of these links, and I'll come on to my reasoning behind why I'm saying what I'm going to say over the coming few minutes. So keep your comments coming in, and we'll discuss that as we go along. But rumours now tonight are saying that Jesse Lingard's transfer to West Ham could be hijacked by another Premier League rival, and it's rumoured to be Wolverhampton Wanderers, who are very keen to make an offer to the former England international to come to Molineux and join Gary O'Neill at Wolverhampton. Now, if they were to try and come in, they are going to try and counter any offer that West Ham could make. So it's interesting now that you know categorically they're not just a couple of Premier League clubs interested, but you've got Saudi Arabian clubs interested, etc. And it's really weird to come out on the day like today when reputable reporter, ex-WHU employee, stated that Jesse Lingard will be playing a behind-the-closed-door friendly with West Ham against Ipswich Town on Thursday, just to see where his fitness levels are at and in terms of, you know, getting a deal over the line. What's interesting about this also is the fact that he also is very, very keen, we believe, on signing back for the club. You know, it's Jesse Lingard 2.0 previously. Now it could be Jesse Lingard 3.0. And I think he would fit the system of what we're looking for. I think it makes sense. But the thing I find interesting is that on the same day that he's linked to two bids coming in from Saudi Arabia, that Wolves suddenly come in. And I wonder if there's an agent thing going on here. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes I try to build a story up and understand where all this stuff is coming from. And it's just, for me, too coincidental that more than one club is now interested in Jesse Lingard, all in the same day. Now, we're led to believe that West Ham are trying to get a deal done to bring Jesse Lingard in a short-term deal where it's favourable terms for West Ham, favourable terms for Jesse Lingard, and it's probably going to be heavily bonus structured as well, giving him incentives to try and turn up play, do well for West Ham. And I think it's a no-brainer deal for West Ham to bring someone of Jesse Lingard's calibre to the club. I think he shows in the past what he is capable of doing, but people may turn around and say, well, that's the past and we have to leave the past behind. But he is still only 30, and I don't believe players just overnight become so crap. There's obviously something mentally not right in that situation, and it seems to be that the one potential calming source to Jesse Lingard could be the West Ham situation. Now, I'm taking some of these links with a pinch of salt. Now, I'm not saying that they're not interested in the player. I possibly believe that they are interested in the player. And I would hope that if West Ham are keen in bringing him in, then he would have the savvy to not knock us back for a second time. It would have to be that he would be taking into consideration what happened before and look how his career panned out. And, under the right manager with the arms around them and the fans behind you, then that would make the right decision. I never thought I'd be here in September of 2023 talking about Jesse Lingard. This is not me begging for Jesse Lingard, but it's me looking at the situation practically and thinking, do we need a Jesse Lingard in our ranks? And, I can forgive and forget because I don't think necessarily what he did was the world's worst. He went for more money. I didn't like his comments when he spoke to Stephen Bartlett. I didn't like them. Of course I didn't like them. But, he's held his head high. He's already knocked back offers from previous clubs and came to West Ham to prove his worth with regards to training. So like I said, reports are suggesting that he is keen to make the move to West Ham. West Ham potentially are looking to try and get this deal over the line before we return to Premier League business against Manchester City on the 15th of September. But I think Jesse Lingard would fit what we're looking for right now. It makes sense for me, to be honest, for Jesse Lingard to come in. Strength and depth is key. We moan on a regular occasion about having more than one goalkeeper on the bench. Sometimes we have two goalkeepers on the bench. Well, I'm telling you what, you add a Jesse Lingard who's fully fit because he's been training at West Ham for a couple of months and he's got something to prove. And people might not believe that he's even remotely close to being in contention for an England squad call-up. But we've seen what's been happening with the England squad over the last few months. And you know what? You don't have to play games to be called up. And all joking aside, it's actually the truth. We've done a Twitter comment talking about Rio Ferdinand's tweet about JWP and not being called up to England. And he said, if I was JWP, I would retire, because when you're turning up week in and week out for your club and you're not going to get results, i.e. you're not going to get called up to your national squad, but players like Calvin Phillips, who don't play any minutes, Harry Maguire don't play any minutes, they get a regular call up for the team. Why would you hang about? Why would you hang about waiting for your national team to call you up? And it's probably the same in Jesse Lingard's boots. I'm not saying he's done anything, because he's not done anything in the last year, but who's to say that he doesn't come in to West Ham if he does sign for us and prove his worth? And therefore, having something like the Euros on the back of that is not a bad thing for West Ham, because he's going to fight for his place at West Ham and he's going to fight for an outside chance to be included in that squad. All these squads that England choose or national teams choose is sometimes on paper you would think they would choose players that are in form. If Jesse Lingard can hit 50, 60% of what he hit for West Ham previously, then we will have a good player in our hands. We'll have a good squad player, a player that can step in when we need it, a player that when, for example, the African Cup of Nations comes around, then he can step into the shoes of a player. So I don't think Jesse Lingard potentially signing for West Ham means that he is just for a Europa League player. I think that we're going to get used to squad rotation, and you may start to see come January players filter out that won't be used regularly. This won't be the end of Pablo Fornals. This won't be the end of some of the other squad-like players, but it could mean that some of them are heading out the door, and it could mean that players like Max Cornet could head out the door in the near future, because it's weird. He's not featuring at all. He's not even coming on making some appearances. He seems supposedly fit and ready to rock and roll. So I don't know really what the situation is when it comes to Max Cornet and not turning up and not being included in the squad for West Ham on match days. So that's an interesting one, and I think you have to keep your eye on that situation when it comes to potential players heading out of the door from West Ham. But if you are just joining me, we are led to believe that Jesse Lingard will be playing for West Ham in a behind the closed doors situation on Thursday, where we'll be taking on Ipswich Town at Rush Green. So we'll be getting to see where he's at. We won't see that, but obviously the relevant people at the club will see that as well. Let me jump into the comments and see what everyone else is saying. Good evening, Anton. Unpopular opinion, but I will take, Jesse, your deal. Leave it as it is. I don't think it's an unpopular opinion, if I'm being honest with you, Matt. I genuinely think I think that the fan base are split. And I fully understand why people wouldn't want him back at the club, but equally I understand why people do want him at the club, and I favour the decision to bring him back to the club. It's just going to be a case of, I don't know how much I believe too much in whether or not he would actually choose Wolverhampton Wanderers over West Ham, and this is nothing to do with the size of the clubs, etc., etc. But does he really want to go down that route of choosing Wolves over West Ham like what he did the last time, and also the potential to play in Europe if we have to get through the group stages? I think if West Ham, the only other interesting thing about this whole matter is that we had to submit our squad, and you would have thought potentially we may have looked at someone like Jesse Lingard would have been a good player, but I suppose that maybe gives you a mindset as to maybe where David Moyes wants to build this team moving forward. Like in the long term, I think the inclusion of the backroom staff is really key. It's actually really, really interesting when you look at the quality and think about where these coaches have come from. So, let's take a very brief look at that. And I know Russ did a show on it yesterday, but he's brought in John Heitinga, obviously formerly of Everton. They used to play with each other. But what's really key about that is that he's began his coaching career in the Ajax Academy. So, and he's worked his way up to the first team. He's also been heavily involved in, and I think he was an interim manager for Ajax as well. So the guy has been involved in one of the most famous Ajax academies that have been around. So tactically, he thinks differently, probably to Moyes. And tactically, he looks at like the young players, the development of the young players. So he ended his playing days back in 2016, but he remained at Ajax with his coaching career. And he played for he led the under-19 side for 4 years before stepping in to coach Ajax in the reserve team as well. So he's got the history of working with younger players in good academies. He's got a pro license with UEFA as well, and he did step in as interim head coach following the departure of their manager as well. And he won 11 of their final 16 matches. So that's one mindset. You've got Mark Robson. That's the little introduction you need at West Ham. You've got someone who's been working with our academy, who's been bringing up some of the best footballers through our academy as well. So that's a new mindset for David Moyes. And I think it's all really, really good stuff. It's all exciting stuff that's happening at the club. So that shows you that, his mindset's maybe thinking a little bit differently, but I do think you add the experience, someone like Jesse Lingard, and it looks quite good as well. Matt says, us football fans do hold grudges sometimes. We should let go. If we do sign and bags goals in and plays for us fans, fair play. Yep, you've got the comments coming in our West Ham Network chat, and one of the guys, Dan, is saying that, the first time he megs Declan Rice, then fan will sit there and forgive and forget, and when he bangs a goal in against Arsenal, everyone will forgive and forget. And there's probably an element of that's true as well. Pgad says, does lightning strike twice? Usually no, but this is West Ham. I agree with that as well. I agree with that sentiment. I agree with the sentiment, but I just look at the situation and I go, do I think there's a good player there? And I ask everyone in the chat, do you think Jesse Lingard, under the right mentality with the right boss, could still be a good player? And if you think there could be still a good player, then why would you not take a chance on him? Because if you actually genuinely think he's gone and he's crap, then so be it. Then that's why you don't want to sign him. But I think he's not had a great time of it at Nottingham Forest. It was a bad decision. He was probably guided wrong. I didn't like the whole way we were treated about will he, won't he, all that sort of stuff. So we'll see. Bill Clark says, good evening. Regardless if Lingard joins, we need to ensure the team is rotated. I personally don't like the thought of seeing the same player, regardless on form, as Moyes has done previously. I get that. Yep, I get that 100%. I think there will be a little bit of rotation coming up. Obviously, we've got the Europa League starting in, how many days is that? 14 days time. So we're going to have a very busy, it's not 14 days time, it's couple of weeks' time, but we're going to have a very, very busy campaign. We're going to go back to 2 games a week all the way through up until Christmas. So we're going to be busy and we're going to have to use and utilize the squad. And there's a strong possibility people will probably come back injured from the international duty. They'll get injured during the season goes on, suspensions, all that sort of stuff. We're going to have to utilize this squad 100%. John says, if Wolves or any club come in and Jesse decides to go there, then so be it. We can't be held to ransom on this deal. Completely agree with you. And I don't think West Ham will, John, if I'm being honest. I think West Ham know exactly where the situation is. So I'm hoping that they've managed that situation. And if Lingard doesn't choose to come to West Ham and does go to Wolves, then so be it. We move on. I don't think our season, and this is something, as much as we're doing the content about it, I don't think our season's defined by Jesse Lingard. I feel like a couple of seasons ago, it possibly would have been defined. We could have progressed a little bit more when he was on the highest level of form that he was at the club, but he chose to go back to Manchester United. But our season's not defined by signing Jesse Lingard. I just think he would add really good squad depth. Lingo is a player, moved on from the geezer, failure after leaving West Ham, off to Saudi with a flash Audi. Good banter. But the situation I find is, I don't know if he will go to Saudi. I know there's generational wealth opportunities there for him, but I don't think he'll go to Saudi. I think he's too close to his family that maybe that won't be an option for him. I hope Wolves win the race to sign the snake from Epic Hashtime. It is a short-term contract. Why the dawdling and letting others in? Again, we have to be mindful of the fact that these are reports. There could be something coming in that's coming from the press. That could be the agents trying to start up a little bit of a story, but you would hope that if Jesse Lingard wants to sign for the club, essentially, if he wants to sign for the club and the club want him, then it's a match made in heaven. If he doesn't want to sign for the club and the club want him, then it's not. So we need to move on from it if it's not going to happen. We don't need him, so it fades again, and then he's just showing hot shit his character is, and gone with him. I won't forget how he did us. I pissed me off to the levels. I was really surprised at my reaction when I heard that we were linked to bringing him back to the club and he was training with the club, because I felt like I was going to be a bit more angry over the situation. But in actual fact, I started to look at it for me, and it doesn't mean I'm right. Please, I'm not saying this, Sean. It doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just sitting here saying, for me, in my practical mindset, I see why a deal could be offered. But that doesn't mean my practical mindset is always right as well. Sean Sinclair says here, we are helping him get his fitness back. I'm going to listen to competition for his signature. We have to wait. We have to wait and see. It doesn't mean it's true. It's just reports suggesting that as well. Sean says, go to Wolves then. Old Man Shaggy says, evening, Anton. Good to see you, my man. Bill says, seeing Lingard and Kudos on the pitch, I don't need to give it a millisecond of a thought. Kudos. Does Moyes do squad rotation? I don't think he's going to have a choice, P-Gads, come the games coming up. His hand's going to be tied and he's going to have to change the system. And I think this inclusion of new coaches help that definitely. Corney being offside too much, only thing I can think of. The interesting thing about Corney is that pre-injury, he was one of the most effective players for West Ham last season. At the start of the season, his injuries just absolutely scuppered anything. And it feels like it's now become a wasted situation at West Ham. And I feel really sorry for him, to be honest, as an individual, as a player, because he looks like he's a key character within the squad. I think he's definitely got something about him, but it's just not worked out. And I don't actually know if it will work out at West Ham. So I wouldn't be surprised come January that he could be off ski. But the problem is, if he plays at the African Cup of Nations, then that could rekindle his career again, and we could come find ourselves back with a really key player in the squad. I'd like to see Moyes string Lingard along to the last minute when he tells him, nah, I'd rather have the money than pay your wages. I think a lot of people probably think the same. Bill Moyes believes rotation is when a player does a Cruyff turn. Jesse should sign from Moan Akombo Ramadan. Adam says, all right, Anton Fornals needs to start now to get a good run of games. Lingard will sign for us and he can add something, but we'll wait and see. He needs to hit the ground running. Listen, I think the benefit if Lingard does sign is he's been around the squad. They know him inside out. You know, bringing the band back together, -1. So yeah, I don't have any problems with him bedding in if we do sign him as well. Playing for us again will probably be a pitch for the other clubs that have actually wants to play for. It will undoubtedly come down to money. Interesting. Yep, absolutely. Troj, good to see you, mate. Hope you're well, evening, Anton and company. There's never any striker coaches in a Moyes gang. There really is not. There really is not. Got no strikers to coach. That's a valid point as well. Ings is our striker coach. There you go, Troj. Kev, we were doing well before Lingard joined us. I think we were 4th or 5th. His performances did tail off towards the end. But his level was through the roof, wasn't it? I think David Moyes has done brilliant at West Ham with the players. David Sullivan got in for him, and he does rotate the best 13 players in the squad fairly well from Peter Jones. Yeah, I think he does, but I do think he wants to try some different things, and I think it's going to come. I really do think that looking at these signings of bringing these coaches in really adds a new dynamic. So I think we're going to hopefully see that, and long may that continue moving forward in the season. He wasn't going to get into the Forest once he was fit. Once he was fit. Old man Shaggy JWP is our strikers coach. He plays the ball to Antonio and just says, "Go on, lad!" Laugh out loud. Richard Stephen, he couldn't get into the Forest side once he was fit. Surely this should be telling us something. Sean Solinar, a lot of Jesse's motivation the last time was getting into the Man United squad again, as well as the England team. Those carrots aren't dangling anymore. I think the England team one is, but also I think the guy doesn't think he's finished, and I don't think he's finished, especially not at 30 years old. He knows he's made a mistake. There's no ifs or buts about it. He knows he's made a mistake. He went for that, and that's not the main thing for him, especially at a player at his level. I reckon what he'll probably do is do his best to try and get the contract with West Ham, and then prove his worth, and then, you know, if it means that they come the end of the season, we shake hands and say it didn't work out, we didn't work out. But I think it's someone good to have in the ranks personally for me. Our squad is big enough to use more than 13 players. Peter from Bill Lingo is finished for West Ham. Steve Brown. Ian says, evening, let's go through this again. I know I did not think we'd still be sitting here talking about this situation, but we are. Lingard is no longer wanted at West Ham from Tank the Player. If Lingard scores us goals, then welcome back. I think that is it. I think everything can be forgotten if he does sign us goals. Trini Hammer says, for all the J lovers, it would not matter who came in. If he wants to play for us, he would ignore that and sign, especially after what he did last season. Absolutely. Corny is broken from Steve. Leanne says, Leon Toussaint, if there is any room for Lingard in the squad, Paqueta, Fornals, Benny and Kudos all want to play in his position. Well done, Lingard. You potentially messed up 3 of our windows now from Troj. Most of them aren't good enough to rotate. Mandy says he can't go to Wolves if he was using our training facilities. Who are we? We are the academy bringing the Bairns. Homegrown is always better than shop bots. I'm always a big canvasser for bringing the youth through 100%, but essentially they're not going to bring in any more than 2 or 3 really through the ranks in any one season. I don't see that happening. So yeah, it's just not the way football works anymore. And I get that. Mark, I thought Lingard could help us in Europe, but we've submitted our squad now. We may add him through if we qualify him from our group. But we do have, you know, the League Cup, the FA Cup to contend with. So we've got lots of stuff we've got to contend with as well. Ian K says, surprised Lingard's not going to Saudi. Mandy G says he cannot train with us, get fit enough to play, then leave for another team. We'll have to wait and see. Will Mabamba get a chance this year? Because in my opinion, if he would not be a waste and deserves a loan in the Championship next season, I'm worried for Downs. He may not get into the field with Tom Edson and JWP. It's an interesting situation with with all the players you've mentioned there. I would think Mabama is going to get something. I would be surprised if he doesn't. I would think it would be silly to leave him on the bench and not give him any game time. But we'll have to wait and see who are we to make that judgment. We can't always go Saudi later on in your career. They sign just based on the name. Trini says David Moyes does not rotate enough, hence why so many players want out and are listening to offers. He has his favourites and flogs them until they're knackered, then drops the fringe players in and expects miracles. Cockney Buccaneer don't want him. As simple as that, Cockney. Bye, Lingard. Hurry up. And this is the last comment I'm going to read because I'm going to go. Lingard won't get in the England side. Southgate won't put West Ham players in the squad. Well, you have named that bloody perfect timing as well, because it doesn't, and it's ridiculous, the whole England squad set up, to be honest. It's really disheartening for any player who's performing really well at the highest level and still can't even remotely get a call up for the England squad. Listen, short and sweet for you. Join us tomorrow where Russ will be talking a little bit more about the AFCON and how much impact that will have for West Ham as we move forward. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. Please do that. Go and hit the bell notification as well beside it. That will notify you when our shows do go live. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, there is an option to click join. On the membership option, you get some exclusive content. You get entered into a monthly draw as well to win some really cool prizes. And yeah, any other questions, just put them in the comment section. Hit the thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and much appreciated. Come on, you beauty.